Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us from near and from far tonight. I know some of you are joining us from very far away, from Europe and places, for another of our Artists in Conversation series. I'm Jill Phillips, for those of you that don't know me, with the Studio School. And we have been hosting these conversations almost since the beginning of the pandemic. And each of them has been just a really wonderful and very inspiring peek into the world of artists querying each other about their work. They've been completely unmediated conversations between the artists who sometimes know each other really well and who sometimes know each other's work, but they have actually never met until the preparations for these conversations. And they've all been very unique. And, if you have missed past conversations, they have all been recorded. And most of them are on the digital page of our website, so you can go back and listen to previous ones as well. They are made possible by very generous grants from the DC Commission of Arts and Humanities, the Joanne Shorey Legacy Fund, and from lots and lots of individual donors. And we want to express our gratitude to all tonight for the support that makes this program and so many other free programs possible throughout the year. There's a lot planned for the summer that you'll be hearing about, but I just want to mention one right now that is coming up in a couple of weeks that will be, I think, very fascinating. Colorado artist Jordan Wolfson, who many of you or some of you know, will be giving a virtual talk on a topic that he is very passionate about, which is consciousness and presence in the painting process. Jordan is wonderful to listen to and to learn from, and to watch paint if you have the opportunity to do so. It's a real kick to watch him painting. That takes place Thursday evening, June 23rd. It'll be at 7:30 Eastern Time, and you'll be hearing more about that, and we hope that you'll join us for that as well. So the two painters in conversation tonight know each other very well. They were on the faculty at American University for many years together, and have inspired and supported each other as painters and as friends for as long as they have known each other. They are both brilliant painters working from very rich inner lives and a love of paint as well as art history. And we have been very, very excited about this conversation. We know that it'll be very powerful and poignant, but probably full of lots of humor and love between the two of them as well. I was going to give some background information on the work of both of the painters, but decided a few minutes ago not to do that, to just leave the time, as much time as possible for the two of them to do that. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of bio information on each of them, starting with Deborah Kahn, who holds a BFA from Kansas City Art Institute and an MFA from Yale University. In 2004, she was awarded a Guggenheim Memorial Foundation Fellowship. Kahn regularly shows at Bowery Gallery in New York, including a fabulous show that was just up last month, and I have the beautiful catalog to that sitting here right next to me right now, and at Les Yeux du Monde Gallery in Charlottesville, Virginia. She has also exhibited at Gross McCliffe Gallery in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from 2010 to 2020. Kahn's work has appeared in numerous group shows, including exhibitions at the Albright Knox Museum in Buffalo, New York, and the Toyota Municipal Museum in Nagoya, Japan. Kahn taught at American University for 23 years, and has also taught at Dartmouth College, Yale University, Queens College, and Indiana University. Susan Yanero studied at l'École des Arts Décoratifs et du Bâtiment in Grenoble, France, at Carnegie Mellon University, and received her MFA from American University. She has over 30 years of teaching experience at American University and at Washington Studio School, of which she was one of the founding faculty members. Her work has been included in group exhibitions at Apex Gallery, Art Barn, Courtyard Gallery, Georgetown Art Gallery, and in a solo exhibition at American University Katzen Museum a few years back. Yanero's work is currently on view in the Washington Studio School Gallery, and that show is also online on the school's Artsy site. If you are not in the area, you have to just, go on the artsy site and take a look at the work. It's incredible. But if you are anywhere in the DC area and you haven't seen the show yet, you've got to, make sure you make a trip to the school. The show is phenomenal, powerful, beautiful, wonderful, incredible show. So the structure for tonight is that Susan and Deborah will be asking each other a series of questions while we look at specific paintings and drawings on the screen, starting with Deborah asking Susan and then Susan asking Deborah questions. And hopefully we'll be witnessing some of the wonderful and very comfortable banter that goes on between these two very long time painting friends. At the end of the conversation, we will have time for a few questions, which you can put into the chat. They will talk for about an hour with each other, and then we'll open up for questions. So for now, I'm going to go off screen and turn off my video and turn things over to Susan and Deborah. First, I just want to, mention the usual reminder to please stay muted throughout their talk so that we don't have the background distractions of noise. And because there are a number of us on right now, the images may be a little bit more clear if we all turn off our videos as well. So with that said, I hope you all enjoy. I know you will, and we will see you at the very end. Thanks.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Jill.
Should we start, or are we ready to start?
You should start.
Okay. So Susan, my first question for you, okay? You ready?
I
can't see you. There you are. Makes me feel better to see you. Can you see me?
Yes, I see you very well, but just 1 minute. Jill, on my screen, it says this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
Just press OK. Just press OK.
Got it? It says
yes.
Got it or leave meeting. Got it. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, please don't leave the meeting. Not yet.
Right. Okay.
All right, Sue. So my first question, when a long time ago, when I was living in Silver Spring, I don't know how long ago, I had a painting of yours. And I think Ed asked you, Susan, describe what's going on in the painting. And at that time, I was thinking that the question was about a narrative, what's going on, what's the story? Anyway, Ed and I were transfixed. So I thought my first question would be to talk about what's going on in War in the Backyard, this particular painting. But you did correct me and say that you're not a narrative painter. It's more, your imagery is more symbolic. And you repeat the imagery over and over. So that would be an interesting part of the answer to the question too, because I thought that was interesting when you corrected me.
Oh, sorry, Deb. I didn't.
You don't have to apologize.
Oh, well, I didn't mean to correct.
No, it's just that I always, I was thinking describe the narrative, but it's not really a narrative. So anyway, describe whatever you'd like.
Oh, okay. Well, I do this war thing going on sometimes. I've got a painting that I'm working on now in the studio. And in this particular one, it's children having a party or playing games like Blind Man's Buff, and then outside there exists this bloody war. I feel that in a sense it's symbolic of what sometimes does go on when I think today of what's going on in the Ukraine. I mean, not that children necessarily are playing games inside, but that they have it could be that children are gathering inside and there's this awful war going on, and maybe in their own little world they're in their innocent world, and then there's this awful stuff happening outside. I think of that on different levels. wars that go on inside of us. It could be a beautiful day, or, in a sense, like I believe strongly in the spiritual. And so I believe that that consciousness, that state of being exists no matter what we're going through. And so I'm also trying to say something about that. It's maybe a metaphysical thing that I'm dealing with, or the trying to deal with. I can't say that I successfully deal with it, but that I kind of believe it's part of my belief system, I suppose, that the spiritual world does exist, no matter how awful our life it becomes, that there is another, what would you call it? Another state of existence that we are not aware of at in our humanness, but that exists on a higher plane. I don't know, does that in any way answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. But I'm curious, like, for example, if I were to take the horse, the rocking horse or whatever, do you think of it as like a symbol of something? Or is it more like just another toy, a horse to occupy space, activity inside as opposed to outside? I mean, like specifically, if I were to pick one object.
Oh, the horse to me occupies a sense of toy for the children, but also throughout history it's kind of a sense of power, or also a sense of animals being abused when their horses are ridden into battle. They have no control, they have to go. So there are various things symbolically about horses. I also think a lot, this is kind of funny, but Alan Feltus, who is a very dear friend of mine and whose paintings I love so much, and I studied with him, and I always think of him, carved a very beautiful rocking horse for his first son. And I always have that in my mind when I'm working with children. And so I often try to put that horse among the children, because that horse is so beautiful. And I also am concerned with volume and with the beauty of light. And I do want to make forms beautiful, even though the scene is perhaps an ugly one. I also believe in the power of beauty of light and volume. I also think of Masaccio a lot and Piero della Francesca, the light and the three-dimensionality of the forms. I like to make the forms three-dimensional so that I can hold on to them. I feel that I need something to hold on to. If I make a form three-dimensional and strong, it gives me support. I don't know, I might be meandering.
No, not at all. And you're kind of leading into the my next question, but it's sort of, I think what you're talking about is Alan does the beautiful essay he wrote about your work. He talks about one of your, let's call them themes, is the loss of innocence and the protection of love. So it's almost like the images have both this kind of innocence and then fear simultaneously, and also kind of love. They sort of like move back and forth between those things, I think. I don't know if you agree with that, but should I move to the next question, or do you want to keep with this one?
Let's see. Well, no, we can, let me see.
I'm going to my question, Sue.
Okay, your question.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Because, which, they all follow each other. It's not like it's different.
So you were talking about the loss of innocence.
And... Well, no, I was just saying, well, I thought I was summarizing a little bit of what you were saying. That's what I
Right.
thought. But
Yeah. Well,
I don't
that's
know.
true. And I think that uh, that I do paint about that. I use children a lot. It's very seldom that I use an adult.
Right. Except for that
So
menacing guy.
children and animals, because I think of them as really innocent, and at the same time that they are often abused. So I try to stand up for them in my paintings. And for example, this painting, which is about my loss of my kitty Joey. Well, it sounds so silly. The kitty, pink kitty, is Joey, and then this general clown, the clown. When I paint these paintings, they often look like circuses, but what I really want them to be are children and animals interacting and doing tricks for each other, not for the sake of doing tricks, but just for playing, kind of. And this is called, let me think, I forget what I called this, Saving Joey. So this little girl is being pulled by a dog and getting out of the way of this general with a cannon, who's fired a cannonball, but he's missed Joey. So the little girl saving him saving the cat, and the other children are okay. They've all been missed. The mean man has missed them all, and so they're safe. They're safe in their own worlds, and they're safe in this transformed, in their transformed state of consciousness. And so they're free.
That sort of leads to my next question, which we can leave these up. When I first met you, you gave a lecture to the graduate students, and your first line was, "I am a fearful person." And when I heard that, I thought, this person is going to be my friend. This person is the greatest. It was like love at first sight, although I had known you a little bit before that. But when you talk to me about your painting, it's almost like it's a lifeline. It's different than how it is for me, I think. I think of you as painting saved you and made you able to deal with the world. And some of your answers have already sort of talked about that, but I'm wondering if you want to talk about that,
Yes.
or, elaborate or whatever about
Yes,
that.
I am a very frightened person, really. There were many good things about my upbringing. I was living in a rural place. My father, as I get old, as I am old, I think of him actually as probably giving good advice to me. He said, never work for money and never care about what other people think of you. And my mother was English. She went through the war, and she told me a lot of stories when I was young of children in the war. That's another thing. They did have their own fallout shelter, but she said they never used it because by the time they rounded up all the children and the animals, the bombing was over with. So that's another thing I was thinking of with all the children inside and the war going on outside. But no, but I've always been a little bit nervous. I grew up in Catholicism during a time when the nuns talked a lot about hell and damnation, and thank goodness that period has passed. And the Catholic Church is more concerned now with love. really with loving each other, and that being what life is about. And so I'm drawing more courage from that. But I also feel that that when I paint, I it it brings me into another state of consciousness, which is kind of like a centering prayer kind of thing, like where I'm not aware of time. Well, as we all know from painting, when it's good, when you do not have your ego, as long as I can leave my ego behind, and I try to do that all the time, not be aware of me, but just work for the painting, just work for the drawing. When I'm just trying to put things together that will hold in place, and I'm working about movement and stopping movement and that kind of thing, and shapes and light. Okay, then I leave my own fears behind, but it also, my fears push me forward to keep on with my work, because if I didn't have the work to do, I wouldn't have those periods of time where I was at peace. And I don't know if I should go on to say this, but I am
Up to you.
bipolar. I am bipolar, so it's you know, it's really helpful. My feelings are so powerful that I don't seem to have a barrier between my feelings and what goes on in life.
So when you draw or paint, does it somehow channel the feelings, or is it like calm the feelings?
I put the feelings into it. So I think in a sense it channels the feelings, and I can make it an offering. Like I'm offering, I try to do like as well as I can with what I've got, so to speak,
Right.
and make an offering to the creative being, that, you know, to the universal being, who is the
So when
creator
you're
of
painting,
all. Yeah.
when you're painting, you're mostly struggling, but when you have these good moments, you're almost in an altered state where you feel you're in prayer, like someone very seriously in prayer, kind of.
Right. Yeah, I'm not aware of it. You know, it's just like the time goes and I'm gone. You know, I was interested in hearing Jill talk about the next person who's going to speak. And he's talking about the altered states, because I do feel that for me, I need to be in that state in order to paint well. If I am in any way self-conscious or concerned about myself, or concerned in any way about the real world, no, I feel that my emotions get in the way when I step outside of this self. I'm able to charter those emotions into the painting,
Right.
and create. Sometimes, like you say, it becomes a narrative, or it becomes symbolic, but it is they are. I don't think I could, like you, have painted abstractly, because I need them to be people or animals. I need that sense of them being of the world, but at the same time in another world.
They sort of hold your feelings, but they also somehow go beyond that, speak to a bigger order for you, right?
I hope so. I try to make it so that they take away my feelings. You
Right,
know,
okay,
in doing the act of painting
right.
takes away the excess emotion.
That's
And
pretty precise. I think that's
yeah,
pretty precise. Yeah, I get it.
right.
And
And
I
like
think that,
this was a precursor, the drawing. And that's the drawing I was going to give you.
beautiful.
And then I did the painting after that. I was going to do a black and white painting, but the painting ended up very colorful. I don't know why, but it just did.
Great. That's great. So my third question, you sort of talked on it. I mean, sort of mentioned it. Was you told me once, which is either I don't understand it, or I'm very different in certain ways that I think about this. But you said in a painting you'd have to have everything be very still. You can't have things moving. So it's almost like a force that's driving your painting to stop things from moving. It's almost like, if they're moving, they upset you. So I don't know if you want to talk about that or explain it, because I never totally understood it.
Well, it's like in there's gesture. I paint gesturally, but then I have to stop the movement and then make it available for me to examine what's going on. And I was reading about stopping time. Like, I'm not a great believer in time. I think that time as we know it is this way of measurement, but I think that time in a bigger sense doesn't really exist. I for a while I was reading Nabokov, and there's a passage. Do you mind if I read from Nabokov?
No.
Well, I'll try to read it quickly. This man has just lost his wife, and he's walking home. She's in the hospital. She died. He's walking over a bridge. And this is what happens to him as he walks. His hand found a certain pattern of roughness, a furrow in the stone of the parapet of the bridge, and a knob and a hole with some moisture inside, all of it highly magnified as the 30,000 pits in the crust of the plastic moon are on the large glossy print which the proud selenographer shows his young wife. On this particular night, just after they had turned over to me her purse, her comb, her cigarette holder, I found and touched this, a selected combination, details of the bas relief. I had never touched this particular knob before and shall never find it again. This moment of conscious contact holds a drop of solace, the emergency break of time. Whatever the present moment is, I have stopped it. Too late in the course of our, let me see, 12 and 3 months years of life together. I ought to have immobilized by this simple method millions of moments, paying perhaps terrific fines, but stopping the train. Say, why did you do it? The pop-eyed conductor might ask. Because I liked the view, because I wanted to stop those speeding trees and the path twisting between them by stepping on its receding tail. What happened to her would perhaps not have happened had I been in the habit of stopping this or that bit of our common life, prophylactically, prophetically, letting this or that moment rest and breathe in peace, taming time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it gave to me a great deal of comfort when I happened to come across that particular piece of writing, and it just said everything to me about what I feel about time. And I mean, he said it, I didn't, but it clarified it to me.
So, well, I don't know if we want to really go on this forever, but it's like stopping time, Sue? Is that what you're saying?
Stopping the moment. Stop, that's the wonderful thing we can do, right? In the arts,
Right.
in music, in dance, in painting, we stop time. A pause is a stopping of time. It's in painting, we can do it because we have to stop the images at some
So
point.
it's not, is it like a psychological need that you have to stop time, or is it just like a criteria that makes a painting good?
It's practical in a way because I have to stop them so I can, well, I guess one doesn't have to. I could make it just keep on being real blurry. But for me, I like to clarify certain
Right.
areas. So I like to stop the imagery from try to stop it from moving. It's in the process of moving, but that particular instant is stopped, like you do in a in a photograph.
Mhm.
It's that kind of thing, I guess. Really, it's nothing very deep, really. But for me, I like the feeling that time has stopped.
Right.
I like to try to get that in the painting. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably, I'm probably getting too beyond, I don't
No.
want to get too intellectual about it because I'm certainly not an intellectual person. I'm more, I mean, when I
It's like,
paint, I'm really dirty. My hands are covered. I paint with my hands, my clothes are covered, it's a wreck. My studio looks like Francis Bacon's. I wish my paintings did, but my studio looks like Francis Bacon. And I'm an utter wreck.
so the paintings are not a wreck, but you're a wreck.
An utter wreck. At the end of the day, I am a wreck. Yes, after painting for a day.
So, okay, I just have really two more questions, and then we have one that we share. But this one is, I guess, a little formal in a way. The scale in your work has always intrigued me. You know, how large you work and how necessary it is for you to work large. Not all the time. The one they're showing is a small painting, but how you really love, well, I don't know, you need to paint large paintings. I thought maybe you could talk about scale a little bit.
Yes.
Joey out in front, I think Joey out in front and Seagull with Family were the two that,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yes.
there we go.
Oh, there's Joey out in front. This is a
Yeah.
very large painting,
Right.
7 feet 2 inches by 5 feet something. And I worked on it for 3 years, and I had to lengthen it, as you can see,
Right.
across the bottom. The scale, well, sometimes I like to feel as I'm walking into the painting.
Right. Right.
That the children are the size that they really are.
Right.
And
It's like they convince you, as long as the scale is big, they convince you they're real in a way.
right, it has a certain reality and a certain presence. And also when I painted for the Kahn show, Jack Rasmussen showed me the area that I needed to work with, what the where the paintings would be, and it was a large space, so I had to paint large paintings for that, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed painting really large paintings. It was like walking into this world and just completely getting lost in it. This painting went through so many stages that it's incredibly crazy. I really suffered with this painting, but in the end, I let it go. I just let it
Beautiful.
go.
Beautiful.
for one reason, we were getting kicked out of our studios and I couldn't fit it into the next studio. So I let it go.
So now Joey is orange. Is that because Joey was kind of an orange cat,
Oh
or is
yeah,
it paint?
Joey was my cat for 19 years. And he's in a lot of the paintings because I loved him so much. He was a great big orange tabby, 24 pounds, with great big green eyes. And you could just do anything with him, like hold him upside down. He was just floppy, and such a sweet cat. Well, we've had many cats that have lived long lives, but sometimes there's an animal that really stands out for you, and
So
that was
Sue, I'm sorry, am I interrupting you?
no, 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 Deb.
So the girl with that thing on her head, whatever
Oh
that thing, I
yeah.
don't know. So
Well,
how do you make a decision for that? I mean, is that like, I mean, what is it? It's
I
like,
don't know. You know those things called slinkies?
oh, it's a slinky with a ball?
Yes, a slinky with the ball on top. Nobody could ever balance that in reality.
Oh, but she's bound, I see, she's
She's
bound.
she's just doing a trick.
Oh,
And
cool.
also I saw it as a means of breaking through the circle, and so that the circle around her didn't stop the action. That
Right. And
that
what about
there
the
was that
skull?
verticality that if you follow it up, it goes to the edge of the pants up here. And the skull is like more, what did they used to call those in the olden days? As something more, there was a Latin word for it, but a reminder, like these children, it's like a Mardi Gras, and then there's a reminder of death or destruction or
Right.
human failings or something. But oh, the painting changed a lot. There used to be a great big red monkey on that trapeze, and he just didn't fit. So I started tearing him down, and then the paint came with him. As you can see, there's a kind of a silhouette. Well, that used to be the monkey. And so a great big blob of paint came off with him. And so I decided not to really fill it in, but let that break through into another little area of space. Just, I don't know. This has a lot of texture build up upon
Because
it.
you worked on it so long.
Yes,
So,
and I called Let It Go. One day I got so sick of it. I said, I just wrote on it to remind myself, let it go. Let it go. I kept telling myself,
did
let it
you?
go. I
Did you?
finally did let it go. Yes. Yes.
All right,
'Cause,
my final question before we ask the shared question. It is really, I was rereading what Alan Feltus wrote about your work, which was beautifully written. And he said, I'm going to use the word theme, but I don't think that's correct. One of the things that you're obsessed with is the kind of conflict or the reality between gentleness and danger. And another similar situation is the loss of innocence, with the protection of love. They're all in your paintings. And that seems to be constantly what you're painting. And it's almost like you're getting something out of yourself. And I'm almost wondering, this is not really the question that I had in mind, but when a painting, like paintings are never finished, right? But when you finally let it go, do you feel as though that the relationship between gentleness and danger is somehow presented or resolved, or this innocence and love, loss of innocence and love, and somehow resolved in the painting? Or is it just that it looks like it's finished?
well, sometimes I let it go because at that time I'm I feel like I've done what I could with the painting.
Right. Definitely
And
understand.
so sometimes when I go and look at it, I go back into the painting because I find other things. But in this one, for instance, I'm thinking of the girl as going into puberty, symbolized by, well, a menstruation. I mean, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but you can see this red area of paint, and symbolized by her going into womanhood. And the animals are puppets. That's a little like puppet show. Those are her toys. And they're very anxious for her, those little animals back there. And then there's the baby that might become her baby one day, or not. It's just, I guess this one is kind of symbolic. This painting is a little bit symbolic. I guess it's narrative too. And she's seems anxious, unsure of herself. I I guess I remembered that period of time as being strange for me as 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 a child. And sometimes your memories creep into the paintings. Um, anyway, but at the same time that stuff is going on, you're concerned about just painting in and of itself, making the space
Right.
work, and building up the paint so that it feels solid. Or, well, I tend to do that. I like to have a solid buildup of paint. In the drawing, uh, Layla, can you go back to the drawing? Yeah. Okay. I've started, and this is a theme that my friend Lonnie is working with. Alan's wife, Lonnie. I mean, she's a beautiful painter in her own right, but she just sent me a picture of a painting that she's working with two women. And I just started that in this drawing, and I'm thinking I would like to work with two, with like the person, two people being the same and yet maybe very different, and or in a psychological way, maybe it's an extension of the one person or two sides of the same person. Anyway, so what has that got to do with anything? I don't know, I forget.
Whatever.
Anyway, Deb, let's go on to you. I think
Okay,
I've talked enough.
the last question, yeah, because we're almost, we'll do mine a little quicker, but
No, I wanted, hold on to, let's go on to yours.
all right, but the question 6 is for both of us, because so we could
Okay.
segue to me, but we're both pretty self-critical. And I think a lot of times we're just making changes because we can't stand what we see in our work. It's hard to define why. But when you make changes, it's very different than when I make changes, even though some of the forces might be the same or the desires might be the same. You'll change an image, you'll change a symbol. You'll put a lion in instead of a girl, or the girl will be lying down instead of, a man wearing a hat. So
Right.
it's
And
always been
yours will be a change in color or shape, abstract.
right. But so I'm wondering, just wondering about, do you think that the painting, let me see if do you think that the painting needs a different symbol, needs a different, I'm going to say narrative? Or is it just like, oh, that's a lousy spot, let me try, a lion in this? And then the lion begins to change the whole narrative for you. So that's the question. Is that a clear question? I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is an earlier version on the left of the same painting on the right. And as I'm looking at it now, I like the earlier one better. So I don't know why I changed that. I think I started changing it because I didn't think that the girl with the hat on looked right on her crouched like that. But now that I look at it, I think she does look right. So it would start with a small thing like that, and then sometimes I can't stop changing,
Uh-huh.
and then I have to keep going.
Right.
So
But your changes, well, you change the
yeah, they
color.
become people, different people, or different kinds of people.
Uh-huh.
I gave her, I guess I gave her glasses, and I gave her a kit. I gave the kitty, I made a cat on top of her head. I took away those little puppets. I wish I had kept this one. Oh, and I have exit plans for them. They're talking about how to escape from this war. So, and the girl, that's a young woman, really was her baby.
How did you change the baby to the playing with the hands? What do you call it? Hide and seek?
I decided I didn't want her to be a young woman. I wanted her to be a child.
Uh-huh.
But let's go on to yours. Yours are much more interesting.
No, that's not true.
Look
Go
at
ahead. You
these
can, so that's the segue question.
Okay, yes, Deborah. So let's talk about these. When I first knew you and you gave your talk at AU, you were applying for the position, and I was so hoping you got it. You gave such a wonderful slideshow, and your early work were still lifes from Yale. When you were a grad student, you showed your still lifes, and they were wonderful, marvelous, monumental, abstracted forms, but you could still see that they were still life. And then you went on to these big paintings on paper, which were colorful intervals of space. And then from there, you went on to these big abstract shapes. And I just wondered if, and then on and on until you are now working with the, oh, you went to the big abstract shapes with Layla, could you just go back once? Okay, now if you could see really closely, there's texture coming out. For example, on the far left one, you can see it in, if these were in person, areas of texture. Okay, Layla, you can go on to the next. And then those areas of texture become really, really solid, and they're morphed into one big shape. And I wanted to, there is a where did I have that? Remember that quote that the critic wrote about you? Well, I wanted to write that. I wanted to read that quote, Deborah, about you. Oh, where did I?
It doesn't matter. Sue, you have a question?
Oh, and then you went into, okay, then you went into these at the end where the figures come into play, and they're all intertwined, see, into a big overall shape. And they're intertwined, but they're somewhat separate. And there's this lovely light. You're always concerned with light and color. Color and light are your genius. Okay, then can we go on to where you are now? And now the figures are often separated, really separated. The space goes up in tier-like forms, and you're including landscape space. And that's kind of like an Eastern quality. I know that I was going to ask you about your influences and here, but there's so many things to talk about in these different styles, like how you decided to get from one kind of painting into another. I think drawing is a very big thing for you. And then to get, if we looked again at the very early painting of the abstractions, and then one more back, Layla. Look, from there to what you're doing now, it's amazing how much the paintings changed. And I just wondered if you would like to talk about that.
Well, I mean, it looks like I'm constantly changing, but I always feel like I'm just staying the course. I think, I mean, this will be like a combination of three of your questions in a sense, really, but my life as a painter is really so that I could like live a life of learning, I think. And obviously I'm the one who's teaching myself, because it's like, and it's not like I'm in a class, but so I'm always, to the best of my ability, studying from painting and drawing from painting. And when I was in graduate school, I'm thinking, how did it begin? Al Held told me that Matisse's Red Room is the best painting done in the 20th century. And I thought, well, that's a bit extreme. But he said to me, you need to study it. And of course, I didn't do it in graduate school because I was, stubborn. But I always heard my teachers, even though I didn't listen to them, I always heard what they said. So when I was out of school a couple of years, I think like 4 years in teaching in Bloomington, I started to study Matisse's Red Room. And I made a lot of discoveries. And when I made the discoveries, one of the themes was, and is my own verbalization of it, I started to think about how color moved through the space. And sometimes I was very literal. Yellow would be outside and it would be inside. But then it became less literal as I never stopped looking at that. I always look at that. And that was a great influence for a very long time. And then maybe I started looking at some Renaissance painting and making other discoveries. And I would try to do that in the work. And as far as the really early, if Layla goes back to the early paintings, that, and then the next period. I was going through a divorce when I got to AU, and the name of the game for me was standing up and painting. It's like this, I just got to paint. And this is what came out. So I don't even know exactly why they got very simple, very silent. I'm not even sure, but for me, it was always, there was a body inside the skin of the paint as I was painting them. So for me, it's like a progression. And when we get to the more recent ones, this period, I think the scale shifted extremely from the big figure before. We'll go back one to just back to the figures, the group of figures. Basically, because again, I'm always drawing from reproductions or in museums, but mostly reproductions. I decided that I didn't want to have everything working together. And the one on the right, the figures, I think primarily I'm drawing from sculpture, Picasso. I learned a huge amount from Picasso, and some Renaissance painters like Piero and even Leonardo. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the newer work, I started to draw, and I said, in my drawings, I am not going to worry about getting things to work together, getting things to look like a whole, finding, how things are in the larger shape. I'm just going to work in parts. And for me, that was kind of liberating. And so next one, Layla, next image. So yeah, and so well, you could do the drawings. I'm working from different painters, like the one on the left, there's a Courbet in the center, and then on then the figure on the right, I think, is a Goya. There's a little Goya, but I'm just sort of working the parts all over the page. I don't care what's happening. Like you said, doodles. So the paintings, the most recent paintings, scale shifted, the interior and exterior. It's not like I will, it just happens. But I think it comes from what I'm looking at in terms of studying and things I don't even know. I don't really know why things change. So that's it. That's a long-winded answer, I think.
No, it's a good answer. It's a beautiful answer. Yes. Okay.
So I think I answered question 1 and 2, really.
You did, Deb. Now I have to find my questions. Wait a minute. Here. Okay.
But you could leave that image because that's yeah.
Okay. Just a second. Here it is.
So why don't you go get a cup of coffee?
Question 2. Oh, yes, we talked about this. I was going to say, I love seeing when we've gone to museums together, you know, I've loved hearing you talk about the paintings, and I was just going to say, because you talk about how you studied these masters and use that information in your work, but you did talk about that. Do you want to talk about it anymore?
Not really. I mean,
you talked about what about who has influenced you? You talked about that, Picasso, Matisse, and the.
Well, you know, with this painting.
The Eastern painters.
Well, Sue, with this painting, and the last, let's say, 2 years, I've been obsessed with Goya. God knows you can't see him in my work at all, which is really incredible how little I'm getting out of him. But anyway, one of the things that just blows my mind about Goya is he's got all these sort of white gestural marks that reveal light on cloth or whatever. And they always hold the plane. They always hold what's happening inside the fiction of the painting. And I just haven't been able to figure out how he does it, but I really have set about trying to figure out how he does it. And that's how my work has always evolved. And I've made a few discoveries in my life, and I use them, and I keep trying to articulate them. So the last few years of work, well, maybe not the last few years, but let's say 2018, 2019 or something. Like always drawing from Goya, and it's not like I can tell you what I got from him, but it's changed my work just because that's who I was looking at a lot. And that the painting just before this, I actually tried to use, you know, I said, well, I'm going to try to use some of Goya color in the background. And that's very literal of me. I'm not usually that literal, but I did in this one. But I love the figures and all the horse. It has nothing to do with Goya, but the way I'm making the work, well, I don't think it has anything to do with Goya, but I'm trying to learn. Anyway.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Layla, could you put on the next one? The one, this, for example, I love the quiet of the water, that big, gray, light gray abstract shape against all this, I won't call it clutter because it's very organized, but against the noise of all of this that is happening below. I love that contrast. Are you aware? I mean,
no, totally unaware, completely unaware.
Okay. Now, and that also, I know another thing is that you introduced me to looking at Egyptian paintings and Eastern paintings, and I can see in your work a lot the spatial elements of, as the space goes back, it rises on the picture plane. But more than that, there's so many things. The Egyptian figures, often you will make them in a side view. Are you aware of those references in your work?
Yeah, they're not specific references, but like I said, if I see something that I think's, really great, then I just try to draw from it and see what I can get from it. Like for now, right this minute, well, not the second, but drawing from a Persian relief. And I'm just amazed at how it's a wood carving, I guess, really how the lines bend and move. And so I'm, and once in a while when I'm doing the drawing, I see it happening in my own drawing. So that will probably bring about a change, but I can't really specifically say, yes, I see the Persian relief in my painting. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, well, I can see that bendy line from those crustacean-like paintings.
Well, I've always been, I guess I've been looking at bendy lines for a long time. Now I'm looking at zigzags. That's my latest thing, zigzag. I drew from a Bellini and I said, wow, it's like zigzag.
Wow.
And it's like, but you think you try to copy like the way he draws these fantastic heads, but what am I interested in? The zigzags. It's pathetic. Anyway.
That's beautiful. I'm seeing your dog, Lacey, right here. Is that conscious?
Oh, no, this is done much earlier than Lacey. I didn't have Lacey. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a premonition.
Yeah, maybe. So that's it. So is that your last question? Oh, no, your organization.
No.
That I'm organized.
I really think this is important. You're a very organized painter. Oh, and the scale, look at this. The big guy here, and then, these guys are small on the right-hand side. That's so interesting to me.
Oh no, strange painting. I'm a strange painter. What can I say?
It's so beautiful. I love it. Well, I was going to, this is a practical question, but I think that if there are any young painters that are listening, I think I've always been amazed at your organization. You're very organized. And I thought it might be useful to others to tell how you might organize your time in the studio.
Well, now I just basically work on one painting and then I draw as a release, just like I'm tired and, just sit down and draw. But when I graduated from graduate school, well, actually I was on my own before that too, but I knew that I had to face time in the studio and that wasn't so easy for me. So I compartmentalized my process. I don't do this anymore. It was a million years ago. But I set up a big still life, and then I did small portraits of the objects in the still life. Then I did these fantasy paintings. I called them Women in Interior Spaces, and they were influenced by Bonnard and Vuillard. Those were the two artists that I was looking at for those. And it's like, I'm in my 20s. And then the paper paintings came in when I would start to just do these, not automatic exactly, but I would do these paintings where I would respond what you talked about, oil paint on paper, where I responded with the color, the little broken marks of color. That started kind of right after graduate school. So in those days, I would compartmentalize my time really so I could keep learning and keep painting. Because it wasn't so easy for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I built, I guess, a vocabulary. And the more I paint, and even now, the more I paint, the more interested I get in it. It's not like I get into the studio and I hate starting a painting. I absolutely hate starting a painting. I can't stand it until it starts getting interesting and pulling me in. And like, in a way, John Walker, who was one of my teachers, he always said to me, let the top paintings talk back to you. Let the paintings talk back to you. So I guess I've let everything talk back to me, and that suited my organized personality. But like I said, I'm not working that way anymore, but it was really worked for me for a long time to break up my time in the studio like that. 20s, 30s. Now I'm 100, so I don't need to do that.
I remember you saying like that maybe you would do an hour's worth of drawing and a certain amount of time on your small painting, a certain amount of time on your large painting, and the whole
That
thing.
was in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, I
90s.
think that's very useful, for a young painter. When you get to be our age, you usually go into the studio and my God, there's so much to do, and you just go to it.
Right.
In the beginning, when you're developing a way of working,
But,
I just thought that was so ingenious.
wow.
And look what it has led you to.
Well, I mean,
So
like I said,
fantastic.
painting for me, it's not like for you, which is, maybe I could have lived without it. I don't know. But for you, I think it's a lifeline. For me, I had to learn. I had to learn, and I had to keep staying open. I had to keep staying connected. And so that's part of the process, and maybe part of the strength of the work, that I, stayed with it, found a way to stay with it, found a way to learn. For me, I'm never making paintings. I'm trying to make something that's real. And I think you're the same way. I'm trying to make something that's real, that convinces me that it exists. So
yes,
it's a hard journey, and you ask too much of painting in a way.
I just want to look at this painting. It is so beautiful.
I think we're done, Sue.
Oh,
That's
we
it.
are? Oh, that's too bad. I want to keep on looking.
Well, I think but we did have the, I think is that your last question, or do you have one more? I think that's it.
Wait a minute. I think it's on the floor. Wait a minute.
There was one more question, Susan and Deborah, that
Really?
you probably have talked
Oh,
about.
why are you so self-critical? I have to ask her this, Jill. Just why is she so critical?
Right.
Well, I suppose it's my nature to be self-critical. Maybe I grew up in a house with a lot of criticism. But also it's a way to learn, if you do something, you say, I'll do something else. But I don't know. It's just everything always looks terrible to me while I'm making it. But I make them, so I end up with something. So, because I don't really know where they're coming from. I don't really understand where they're coming from.
I think that's the beauty of them, and the mystery.
Anyway.
Are you both ready for a few questions?
Sure. Are you, Sue?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, because there are a few, and two of them are related. One came in earlier and one just came in, but they're similar in nature. And this one first came in while you were talking about your work, Susan. So I think it's directed to you about the collage in your work. And, is that new in your work, or, there seemed to be a lot of collage that happened during the pandemic. The collage.
Oh, the collage. It's a funny thing, but I remember working with collage when I was at Carnegie Mellon. In the first semester I was there, and I really liked it, but then I got so involved in painting and everything that I left it behind. So when I broke my leg, in the middle of the winter, and I couldn't paint, and so I was drawing, but I wanted to use color, so I just started doing collage, because Naomi I can see Naomi's there somewhere. I just saw her name a minute. Where did you go, Naomi? I love the collages Naomi had
It's
done.
wonderful collage.
Yes, so she influenced me, and in a way, but I think it was also just an easy way to enter with color. I had all these art news magazines from years ago, and I was sitting most of the time because I was in this big cast. So I'd pick them up and look through them and see these wonderful colors. And so then I'd start drawing on them, and then I'd cut it out and start pasting them. So yeah, that was the result of having the broken leg. And I'm really glad that happened, because
Silver lining to a
yes,
not fun time.
right, because it was fun. It's really fun.
So, here's a question, and, I think we're all really interested in this. I'm glad this was asked by Pam. How have each of you been influenced? Have each of you been influenced by the other? And if so, how? So it's for both of you, I guess, to answer.
That's interesting.
I've been influenced by Deborah in terms of her, well, I don't know exactly how to put it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I've been influenced, but I don't know
how she looks at things. When we would sit in her studio and look at master paintings together, and we would go to shows and look at master paintings, and the things that she looked at were very different to the things I looked at. So I began to be more aware of these interconnections of things and interlocking interconnections, I think, through Deborah, definitely.
Well, I can't specifically say how you've influenced me, except that every now and then your head shows up in a painting. Remember I called you and I
get rid of very quickly.
Remember I said, Susan, your head showed up? Actually, in the bird.
That's so funny.
And then I have a painting where the figure, I think, sort of looks, back in 2015, looked like one of your figures. So I don't know. But actually, it would be fun to draw from one of your drawings or paintings. That would be fun. But
yeah, we could draw from each other. That would be fun.
But it was like all of a sudden when I started painting, your head shows up. It's happened a few times.
That's really scary.
Scary. It was scary.
So, here's another question that, I think both of you could answer as well, about the interrelationship of your drawings and your paintings, because both of you draw and both of you, obviously paint. And how do you see the interrelationship for yourselves?
Well, I think I sort of talked about that, right? Didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe Susan.
Yeah. Well, I think it's necessary for me to keep drawing. It provides me with almost, what can I say, the food for the thought. It's like I get ideas for figures. I get ideas for relationships. All of my ideas come through drawing, I think.
Yeah, and I would say my drawings always lead my paintings to as you saw the changes, they're always in the forefront. Like when I did those ropey paintings, the drawings were very linear and very ropey before I started painting. I was still painting the more solid, quiet shapes. The drawings were moving into the ropiness. So anyway, they're always leading the paintings out of themselves or something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I find that my drawings are usually ahead of my paintings.
Yeah. I don't know whether they're better, but they're ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see, there's Susan, can you talk about a few of your favorite painters, particularly in relationship to color?
Oh, gee, there's,
Alan Feltus and Lonnie.
well, I know Alan and Lonnie have always been so important to me. I don't know what I would have done without them. Their color and their sense of touch in the painting is just so wonderful. And in different ways, you know, Lonnie works a lot with from things she sees, but she changes it, and she works from her head too, from her head and from her sight. Alan works a lot from his head, but he uses his own body a lot to find things. And I don't know, just my paintings are very different to theirs. I've always wanted to paint exactly like them. The first time I saw Alan's work was in the Corcoran in 1973 or 4. And I had just come from France, where Richard and I had spent a year there. I had studied at a school in Grenoble, and I was just so immersed in art. And I went into the Corcoran, and there was Alan's. I didn't know Alan. There were these incredible paintings, big figurative sculptural paintings of these women. And I thought, oh my God, to me, they were the best contemporary figurative paintings I had ever seen. And I didn't even know he was teaching at AU at that time. I found out later, of course, and my God, I was just overjoyed. But those paintings still remain with me. I just don't know how he does it, how either of them.
But you're also very involved with some of the Renaissance painters,
Oh yes,
Masaccio.
Masaccio never leaves me.
Right.
Masaccio and Piero are always there.
Right.
And then, of course, the modern painters, so many, gee whiz.
But not specifically in terms of your color.
Oh, my color, no, that's true. It's mostly Piero, I guess. And I'm also influenced by Picasso a lot. I love Picasso. Yes, and I love, you know, it's funny, as I get older, I find it hard to remember names, even of famous painters. But, you know, someone will put a book down and I say, oh, that's my favorite painter. And then somebody else will put a book down. I'll say, oh no, that's my favorite painter. I love almost everything I see nowadays. That's great, you know, but in specifically, and I love, in terms of landscape, I love Monet. I love Monet's seascapes and Seurat. I would say, in terms of the small work I do, and because those are often done from life. So I don't know, did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think so.
But while we're talking about colors, Susan, there's a question about the significance to the pink poodles in a couple of your paintings. Is there...
Very specific.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just think poodles should be pink.
That's a good answer.
My kitty Joey was orange. I tried to make him orange, but he didn't work. And sometimes it works when he's orange.
Interesting.
I just put in whatever color works, and if it doesn't work, I take it out. That's why my paintings take me so long, because I don't know what I'm doing. I put one thing in, color in, then I have to take it out, then I put another color. So I'm trying to make that part easier by staying within like a range of yellows or blues or something, but we'll see. Those are interesting. I see some little colored figures. Jinda.
Yeah, they come up as a plan. But Sue, your color has shifted hugely from the dark paintings that you used to do.
Oh, that's right.
And then you also do black paintings now too, so.
Yeah, I love the color black. I used to paint almost entirely in gray. And then I had, I don't know if you'd call it a breakdown or something when they found I had bipolar. But when I came out of the hospital, or maybe when I was in the hospital, I started seeing color differently. And when I came out, I was seeing everything in these fluorescent colors. So I couldn't paint in grays anymore. So I started painting toys because toys were brightly colored, and I started doing these still lifes with toys. And then I started continuing to paint in those bright colors. And right now I'm going back and forth a little bit more, but for a long time I couldn't paint in grays anymore. But I don't know why that I mean, I don't know why I started seeing color differently. You know, who knows why these things happen.
It's funny like that, the white greenish paintings that I did, those quiet paintings,
Yes,
so you could barely
yes.
see anything. I couldn't paint those now if I tried.
Yes,
I couldn't do it.
understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
no way.
Yes. Right. Well, I
couldn't
think
afford-
when we leave, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm gonna just ask one more question myself of both of you, if you don't mind answering it, because both of you are not only incredibly masterful painters, but you are also really powerful teachers, both of you, and have unlocked so much and given so much, and I think influenced so many students for decades. And I'm just wondering what, teaching as part of who you are has done for your practice as well, if anything.
Well, I think teaching has been very important to me. For one thing, there is the aloneness of being a painter. And when you're teaching, you are able to share what you are going through, in a sense, with other painters. And that sharing is very important. Like, I don't know that I have ever been able to really teach anybody how to paint, but I would try to work with them with what they're doing and try to push that. But my students have been very important to me, as they often inspire me too. It's sometimes they do wondrous things, without even knowing it.
Yeah, I think that's a nice answer. I think teaching, well, I haven't taught for a while, but it was very important to me. And I always felt like I was a student of painting too. So I didn't really feel, I was trying, as you said, share if I knew, something that I wanted to share. But I always felt like I was in the boat with my students, definitely swimming around, getting lost, never knowing.
I know, that's the thing.
So, and then, I had grad students, so I was very close to some of them. And like you said, they've been important to me.
I know you've had lifelong relationships, which is wonderful. And I've had some
You
close
too.
friends.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes.
It's a special relationship, really, I think, teaching painting and drawing. It's not like, giving a big lecture.
Right. I remember I tried not to keep doing the same thing, so I'd get into trouble sometimes. Once I ended up doing a crime scene to make something different.
I remember that.
Oh, I remember that too.
With the tape on the floor and
You offended some people, right?
and everything. I think so. And all the furniture was upside down and everything. So anyway, I
Now,
don't know.
we could end with telling
And-
Susan Yanero stories.
Baby dolls and all this stuff. Poor students. My poor students.
Oh,
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I just want to say to both of you, thank you. I mean, this was just so wonderful for us to
thanks
be able
for
to witness.
having us, Jill.
Oh, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
two of you
Jill.
don't go away
Great
yet.
to reconnect
Thanks
with
for-
all of you.
Thanks for putting this together. It was
Yeah,
fun.
Layla, thank you.
Thank you, Layla.
Yeah, thank you, Layla, for being the tech person. And as always, we don't know what we'd do without Layla on so many levels.
Oh, I know. She's wonderful. And so are you,
Yeah.
Jill.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. So anyway, thank you all again for joining us. And I know, for some of you, Lonnie and Alan, if you're with us, it's very late for you over in Italy, but you're still awake.
Maybe they went to sleep.
I think they went to sleep. I told Lonnie this was going to be recorded so she could access it if they got too tired. But anyway, we were thrilled to be able to have this conversation tonight. And again, thank you to Susan and to Deborah. And
Thank you.
you'll be getting more
welcome.
information about Jordan Wolfson's talk in a few weeks. That'll be
Definitely.
very wonderful as well. So, hopefully we'll see all of you there. And have a great rest of the evening. Susan and Deborah, don't go away.
Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Jill.